Hello, this is Barb Arland-Fye with the Catholic Messenger Conversations podcast. Today my guest is Deacon Matt Levy, who is the deacon for Our Lady of the River Parish in LeClaire and Church of the Visitation in Comanche. And Deacon Levy has such an interesting background. I just thought I'd like to share that with you and inspire you in these days of the era of coronavirus. And I thought we would start with Matt. Can you tell us a little bit about, you actually grew up as a person of the Jewish faith. And I was just wondering if you could kind of take us on your journey from a Jewish boy to a Roman Catholic deacon.
Well, sure. I think they were allowed, at least 4 hours for this podcast. So
maybe not quite.
No, being raised in New York City with Jewish parents and the survivors of the Holocaust, it was a very traditional Jewish home. Celebrated all the holidays, and of course Passover was very important. So as I grew older, my faith it did take a little bit of a turn going into college. Just like all college kids, we kind of leave our faith behind and say we figure that we can do it our own way. We can figure things out on our own.
Wait, take me a step back. Tell me about about what happened to you in high school.
Oh, okay. I keep forgetting that very few people have heard my full story. It would take a long time. But my mom and dad were divorced when I was much younger, about 10, 11 years old. My mom had remarried. A wonderful man, loved him very much. And then he had passed away when I was just turning 16 years old. And my relationship with my mom kind of really took a hit with that. She was still young, a very attractive and beautiful woman, and still wanting to get remarried, and I was going through puberty, and the two just weren't mixing. And it got to the point where I was asked to leave my home and figure out where I wanted to be. Found a friend, a wrestling buddy, who the family loved very much. They invited me to stay with them for my senior year in high school, and they were Catholic Christians. They had a remarkable approach to their faith. They were a normal family, had their squabbles and stuff like everybody else. But they really did have a very deep love for themselves and for their Catholic faith, and they would go to Mass regularly on Sundays. And this would have been in the very late 70s, maybe 76, 77. And this was in Huntington, Long Island. So they would invite me to come to Mass on the basis that they were going to be going to breakfast after Mass. And they said, if you want to come to IHOP and have pancakes with us, the only condition is you have to go to Mass with us. And I did. And I began to really fall in love with their reverence and who they were, how they behaved, and how much honor they gave God. And I said, I want more of what they had. That has always been a theme in my life, is we recognize the grace that people have and saying, I want what you have.
That is so cool. What can you tell me what your experience of the Mass was like at that point, what that was like? And I mean, because that was an interesting time in history. In 76, I was graduating from high school. I think you were too at that point.
I was my senior year, and I do remember that people were standing at the same time, they were sitting at the same time, and then they would all get up and leave me all by the pews, and I felt really bad, saying, oh, what did I do, or how can I be a part of that? And I think there was a little bit more Latin that was spoken back then too. I think that was on the cusp of just going to the complete vernacular. So I don't remember. I remember the prayers being very faithful and being very reverent. I do remember the Old Testament being spoken and feeling very a part of that, and not really think, well, I'm not that far off.
That's great. So then what happened after high school?
Well, I went to college, went to Maritime College in the Bronx, Fort Schuyler, and there were maybe about 10 of us that were solidly Jewish. The rest were, well, whatever,
What do you mean by solidly Jewish?
We still attempted in a very irreverent way. We attempted to keep all the holy days holy,
okay,
and still celebrate Passover, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and just if we couldn't go home because it was a military school, we would at least try to celebrate that on the base, on the campus. And if we couldn't do that, then we would go to each other's houses and share with their families. So there was an attempt made. It just wasn't very supportive. And our interest started, it was very challenging, of course, going through college, like any other college kid. There's a lot of exterior stimuli that are coming and bombarding you in so many different ways.
I'm just dying to ask, so why did you go to a military college? Were you hooked on having a military career or what?
Well, it was, to me, it was what the cost of the education was all paid for by the Navy. So,
that's so good.
And so I was a scholarship student. I wanted to go to Annapolis, and I couldn't get in. Wasn't too interested in West Point because I was raised around the water, and I just wanted to stay around the water. And lo and behold, I'm an Eagle Scout, so when I made the application to the Maritime College, they accepted me on the basis, not my grades, but because I was an Eagle Scout. And come to find out that on the day that we show up, and how many of you were class presidents and captains of football teams, and we all raised our hands, and then how many of you were Eagle Scouts, and half of us raised our hands. So that was one of the criteria that they had used.
Oh, that's fun.
It was really quite special. A bunch of overachievers, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh.
We had an Eagle Scout fraternity.
Oh, that's great.
Most people have the Greek fraternities. We had an Eagle Scout fraternity on campus.
So you stuck with the Jewish faith. And
I did.
Embraced it. And you said you were really immersed in the Old Testament, or I guess I don't know if you refer to it as the Old Testament.
Yeah, the Old Testament was something obviously that I had known and had been grown up with, and there was a certain degree of comfort in knowing that I did not have to undo any of my teachings as I continue to make my journey to Catholicism. Certainly to Christianity as a whole, I did not have to undo any of the teachings. It was just a continuation of the journey. So in fact, what the New Testament began to reveal to me in a very profound way, how the Old Testament was, I was able to grow deeper into my love of Old Testament through the New Testament. It became fulfilled.
Yeah. So how did you tell me about the progression? I mean, I shouldn't say progression. Maybe that's not the right term. How did you then really make that commitment to consider Christianity as a religion?
Well, it really started for me in the Navy. I had met and fallen in love with a wonderful woman who's going to be my wife, and she was a very devout Catholic woman. And I knew that it was her desire and her dream to always be married in her home parish, St. Peter and Paul in Crystal Lake, Cary, Illinois, outside of Chicago. And I never wanted to be that obstacle or that impediment, for her not to be able to achieve that dream. So I knew that one of the steps that I had to take was I had to become Christian in some capacity. I wasn't quite ready to be Catholic, but through the help of fellow squadron mates, I was flying in the Navy. We were on deployment in the Philippines. I was in the maintenance department when I wasn't flying, and by the grace of God, there were quite a few of the fellows that there were having, they had a very rich and deep Christian faith and loved Bible study. And they invited me to a Bible study, which became almost, all of us became hungry for on a weekly basis. It was a very shared dialogue between the Old and the New Testament. So they would bring out the New Testament, and I would say, oh, this is where this comes from in the Old. And it was really very fulfilling. So much, in fact, that by the end of my deployment, before I got married, I had gotten baptized through the Southern Baptist.
Wow.
In the Philippine Sea. Yeah.
You had said you weren't quite ready to become Catholic. how did you know the difference between Christian, being because Catholics are Christians.
Yes.
So did you see that as a step beyond? Or?
It did. To me, being raised, especially in the military, and being very grounded to rank and authority, and to me, everything had different levels of reverence and respect. So to me, the Catholic Church was like at the very pinnacle, at the very top.
I see.
And so I didn't think I can get there directly. I think I had to work my way into the sacraments and understanding the doctrine and the orthodoxy of the faith. And it took time, but I definitely wanted to make it right, and I wanted to do it the correct way. So I had gone through RCIA. After my deployment, after Lisa and I had got married, we were adopting our first child, and then we entered into RCIA to come into the church.
So when you got married to Lisa, you were a Christian, you were a Baptist, basically.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So did you get married in her parish?
We did.
With a priest and like a minister?
No, just the priest. Father Pliza was his name. He has since passed away. God rest his soul. A wonderful man. And we had fulfilled all the requirements at that time to have a proper, valid, and licit wedding in the Catholic Church. All I had to do is profess that I was going to raise the children Catholic as a Christian. So we were able to have a full Catholic wedding.
And you said he was very encouraging to you, right? Didn't
Father
you say?
Pliza was. Yes.
Tell me how that shaped your understanding of the faith and you felt that he really. Didn't you tell me that you felt he told you that you would be led by the Holy Spirit or called by the Holy Spirit or something?
Yeah, there was. One of the things that I really embrace is the sacrament of reconciliation. I'm not sure why so many people are frightened or afraid of it. To me, that's just a wonderful opportunity of cleansing, purification, being honest with yourself, being honest before God, who knows everything anyway. So why don't you just talk about it and get it over with? And, it's like a Band-Aid. Just take the Band-Aid off and let it heal. So one of the things that really brought me closer was the ease of which I had with Father Pliza to be able to talk about things that I was troubled with.
Oh, okay.
And him telling me continually, don't be afraid, fear not, you're on the right path, let the Holy Spirit guide you and feed you. And it did, though, my whole entire life. It's been the Holy Spirit my entire life that's led me to where I am right now.
Wow.
So
do the Jewish people believe in the Holy Spirit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, the Spirit of God in Hebrew is ruach.
Breath.
The breath of God.
Wow.
And in Genesis, that's the first thing that you hear about. In fact, at every baptism we talk about that. We read the first reading in Genesis about how God breathed on the waters, and that's the Spirit of God.
Wow. And so you decided to become Catholic then after
RCIA.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I did, and when I came into the church, my first daughter, Sarah, was in my arms and was coming into the church and being baptized. So on that Easter vigil, the two of us came into the church together.
Oh, that's so cool. That's your first child, right?
Our first daughter, Sarah.
And was she a baby at that
She was
point?
an infant at the time, yes.
Wow, that must have been really
Little
special.
bitty baby, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very special.
And so then tell me, do you remember what year that was? Or?
That would have been, I would say, 85.
Okay.
1985.
And then what happened after that? Did you just become more immersed in the Catholic Church, or?
Yeah, well, I would say that Lisa and I were in the process of raising the family, really saw the need for me to get more involved as the father in the house. How are we going to raise Sarah? We were going to adopt in the future. We didn't know this at the time, but we at the end will have 5 adopted children.
Wow. And
all that's going to take a lot of help from God and gifts from the Holy Spirit. So it really helped. It behooved us, Lisa and I, just to stay as active as we can. I was still on fire for the love of the church. Coming into the church, I became a sponsor for RCIA, and helped others come into the church.
Oh,
as
that's
well.
really cool.
Yeah, so that really helped feed me as well. Nothing, to me, the whole idea of being fed is also, it is not just a personal, you're doing for me.
Yeah.
I get fed by doing for others as well. It's a give and take type of thing.
It is a beautiful thing, isn't it, to
I love
sponsor
it.
someone else, especially when they're just so
Yeah.
on fire or so in
Right.
love with the church.
Yeah, and who would have ever guessed that? I would say maybe I went to Curcio several years later, and I received my calling to the diaconate on my Curcio weekend, and was asked to really seriously consider it. Put my application in, not thinking at all that they would accept me. And lo and behold, they approved it and accepted me. I entered into my 1-year discernment, my 4-year formation at the Diocese of Peoria, and was ordained. And my dad came to my ordination. My Jewish father came. And
that's so cool.
it
What was
was.
that like?
it was really pretty cool. He was a little nervous, I think. Didn't really understand, but we loved each other very much, and he trusted me. And we just, a couple of years later, when I was visiting with him, as the story goes, I was doing my Liturgy of the Hours. Out of respect to him, I wouldn't come into the house. I would stay in the garage, which they call the lanai, and I would do my morning prayer, and he would say, "What are you doing?" And I'd say, "I'm doing my prayers." He said, "Well, come into the kitchen." And then the next day, "What are you doing?" So I'm doing my prayers. Well, come into the living room. And by about third or fourth day, I was reading the prayers out loud, which, of course, anyone who does the Liturgy of the Hours knows that we start with the Psalms, the Old Testament.
Right.
My dad's response was, "Hey, those are ours." I go, "I know, Dad." He goes, "Well, I thought you gave all that up." I go, "No. Haven't had to give any of that up, Dad. It's just continuing the journey." And wouldn't you know it, that by the end of the day, he had asked me, because I was doing the rosary at the time, he asked me to say them out loud, the prayers out loud. And he looked at me and says, "I really want what you have."
Wow, that kind of harkens back to your high school.
That comes back full circle. And by the time I had left, I had about a day or two to kind of coordinate it, but we signed him up for RCIA, and that Easter he came into the church.
Could you have imagined that in your wildest dreams when you went that weekend or that week? Had you had any idea that
No,
that would
not
happen?
a clue. Not a clue. That's the Holy Spirit.
Right.
That's the gifts of the Holy Spirit just coming out. And you just, my mantra has always been, "God, let me show up, and I'll let you do the rest."
Wow.
And it really works.
And then tell me about, wasn't there something about after your father passed away, were you there for the service?
For the funeral, yep. I was asked, when my dad was coming into the church, this was in Florida, and I was asked to come down to Florida to be there for him, and the Monsignor that was there had asked if I wanted to give him his first communion, during Easter Vigil, which I was quite honored to do that. So I did that, and then 2 years later, my dad suffered a bout of pneumonia, and with a mixture of his medicines and Coumadin and things, they couldn't stabilize him, and he passed away. Lo and behold, I was asked to come back to do his funeral. And my sister, Elise, who had not transitioned to Christianity at all, she still remained Jewish, was a little bit concerned about how all this would kind of work out, the funeral for my dad. And I took the approach of Father Pleasa, just loving her, meeting her where she was at, embracing her gifts and her strengths instead of what could have been perceived as her weaknesses or her lack thereof. And I invited her to do the Old Testament reading and the Psalm.
Oh, that's a great idea.
To make her feel comfortable, and she did. She felt really good about that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What did she comment about the Mass at all, or about the?
No, it wasn't. Unfortunately, it wasn't a mass. It was
Okay.
just a funeral, a burial service,
Okay.
committal rite. Um, and that was again out of respect to her too,
Oh, okay.
because I wanted her to completely participate in its fullness, and I knew that if there was communion in the precious body, that she would not be able to receive it, and I didn't want her to feel that she was left
Right.
out.
Right.
Yeah.
And were you a
So
deacon at that point or
I
not yet?
was. I was a
Oh.
deacon then. Yeah. So I actually buried my dad.
Wow.
Which could you look at it as being somewhat solemn and on occasion of burying my dad, but it was really a gift. I remember doing the service and at the church, and then we buried him. About 45-minute trip away by car is the VA cemetery where he was buried. And I remember him with me. He had been cremated, and his remains were with me before we buried him. And we just, I packed a little lunch, sandwich lunch, and so we're in the back seat of the limo, or the hearse, driving out there, and just the two of us.
Wow.
Talking, yeah.
Oh.
And I was actually able to listen to him too.
Oh, that's great. What did he tell you?
He thanked me. I remember him being very grateful and, again, reassuring me. And a lot of it was great memories of our past. We had a very unique relationship. It was a very loving, very friendly, very manly type of relationship.
Oh, that's great.
And I have no regrets. None.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, did you have any other siblings beside your sister, or?
I have some stepbrothers and sisters that are still on the East Coast that I haven't remained, unfortunately, just by virtue of the geographics and stuff of where we are, and then the relationships that we had. They weren't close. They weren't distant, but we just weren't very close.
Right.
And I do keep in touch with my oldest stepsister on occasion,
Okay.
but nothing really too major.
Now tell me about, these are really strange times we're going through. So how are you ministering to people in this time of social distancing and the coronavirus?
It's really been hard for me because anyone who knows me knows that I don't keep a 6-foot radius around myself. I really don't have boundaries. I like to hug people. I like to, we're just very close in that way. So I have to. This has really been a challenge for me. I think the best thing we can do is support our leadership. Our pastors need a lot of prayer. Our bishop is doing a wonderful job. A lot of decisions that are being made are out of our control.
Yeah.
So we just have to do the best that we can.
Okay. What are you praying for these days?
Wisdom and knowledge and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those 3 gifts. We need more of that.
Okay, I agree on that. And any good insights for how we should handle these times with not being able to attend Mass, or?
I think it's our time right now to be creative and think out of the box and see. We have now, the Vision 2020 is no longer on the fringes. We are in the middle of being the marginalized right now. I mean, those that thought that they were on the fringes, no, those in the middle right now are as much on the fringes as anybody else. Everyone's been marginalized. So how do we reach out to each other in the most loving and comforting way to bring the love of Christ to each other? That nothing should separate us right now.
That's awesome. Deacon Matt Levy, thank you so much for talking with me for Catholic Conversations with the Catholic Messenger.
Oh, you're very welcome.
We're really
Thanks
grateful.
for having me.
We have to come back again.
Thank you. I hope so.
Okay, until the next time.
Okay.